Wheel of Time community, and welcome to the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Tim.
And together, we're gonna pod through Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time book series. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing all right. It's almost Christmas and really looking forward to it being here.
Me too. I'm excited. I love this time of year. It's my favorite time of year. The lights and the music and the cheesy movies. I really love Christmas time.
Yeah, it's great.
So before we get started, we just want to remind you that this is a reread. We assume that you've read the entire series, so there will be spoilers. You have been warned. Also, just a heads up, our neighbors are being extra loud today, so if you hear anything in the background, sorry, it's beyond our control.
We've tried to tell them we're really, really sorry.
Yeah, they're just really loud.
City living, yay!
All right, Tim, what are we going to be doing in today's episode?
Today we'll be discussing chapters 35 and 36 of the Dragon Reborn, where Perrin and Company escape his mess with the Whitecloaks, and Min's Falcon makes her presence known. Chapter 35 is called The Falcon, and the icon is the waves.
Here's a quick summary to act as a reminder for those of you who are not reading along with us. Lan and Perrin head in through the common room, and Lord Orban is still talking about his glorious triumph over the savage ale. This guy, am I right?
Right, yeah.
Perrin grabs Loyal and sneaks down to the stables to meet up with Lan and Moraine. They head toward the river, and Loyal talks about it being like old times, sneaking away in the night with enemies behind us, and maybe enemies ahead, and danger in the air, and the cold tang of adventure. Perrin doesn't know what he's talking about and tells him he's crazy, but Loyal says he's just trying to capture the mood so he can write about it later in his book. Lan books them passage on a ship called the Snow Goose, and just as they're casting off, a girl in divided skirts leaps onto the boat, asking for passage for as far as Perrin is going. After bargaining with the captain, she goes to stand beside Perrin at the railing. He can't decide if she's pretty or not, and he's not really sure what to make of her. They talk, and Perrin is surprised that she didn't tell the townsfolk about him helping Gaul escape. He asks her if she's following him and why she was staring at him. She tells him she got a good look at Moraine and recognized her for what she is, which makes Lan her warder. An ogier is an ogier, so that just left Perrin, and she doesn't like things that she can't account for. He's a countryman at first look, but he freed an ale and killed a bunch of Whitecloaks. He's strange, and strange trails are what hunters for the Horn look for. Perrin scoffs and says that she can't be a hunter because she's a girl. In response, she flourishes some knives as neatly as Tom Maryland could have done and tells him that nimble fingers and sharp eyes and wits do far better than swords and muscles. She took the oath in Ilion with the others. She says that the Horn will certainly lie at the end of the strange trail, and she's never seen anything stranger than Perrin. He asks her what her idea is for where to find the Horn, and she asks him if he's ever heard of Manetheren. Yes, he has. She tells him every queen of Manetheren was an Aes Sedai, and the king a warder bound to her. The capital was in the Mountains of Mist, so she thinks the Horn is there, unless Perrin leads her to it. Perrin tells her that he has heard of a great treasure hidden in the mountains, trying to lead her on a false trail. But because the Mountains of Mist stretch for hundreds of leagues, she shouldn't waste her time with them. She refuses to be deterred, and he angrily tells her that they're just simple travelers. He asks her what her name is so he can stop calling her girl, and she tells him that she calls herself Mandarb. He can't help laughing in her face. At first she's angry until he explains that Lan's horse is named Mandarb, and then she's embarrassed. Her name is Zareen Bashir, but that's no name for a hunter. Trying to make her feel better, Perrin tells her that he likes the name Zareen and that it suits her. She immediately flashes angry again, and before she can pull one of her knives out and use it on him, Perrin excuses himself to go to bed. Just before he reached the hatch to go below deck, she called to him, "Farm boy, perhaps I will call myself Fail. My father used to call me that when I was little. It means falcon."
I feel bad for Loyal. This guy has not had the chance to sleep in a bed designed to fit him in a really long time. He finally gets a chance with a bed made of sung wood, And then they have to leave before he can even take a nap.
Yeah, it's
Like,
sad.
I don't think Loyal gets enough credit for putting up with pint-sized people this whole series.
Yeah, totally.
Perrin thinks to himself, I don't seem to leave any mark behind me of late. This makes me laugh because he just left a huge mess of defeated Whitecloaks out in the village square. Like, no trace at all there. That being said, it is true that he's getting used to traveling with Lan. He's ready to go to moment's notice, and he leaves very little evidence that he was there in his room. Part of it has to be the Wolf Brother ability, I think, but I also think a lot of it is just being around Lan and learning from his example.
Okay.
When Loyal makes the comment about how this scenario is like old times, it's a nice call back to the eye of the world. Like, our team has indeed come a long way. Mm-hmm. Perrin is now smart enough to check the kitchen and make sure that he's not raising too much attention while getting the horses ready to go. They have been doing this long enough that it's become second nature for Perrin to do a lot of things that he does in this book. But regardless of how much they have been through, Loyal's still excited about the idea of adventures. Mm-hmm. Like, I love his response to Perrin's comment that he must be crazy. He's like, I believe I'm coming to like it, adventuring. Of course I am. His ears gave violent twitches. I have to like it if I wish to write it. It's just kind of adorable. Loyal really brings a lot of light into some heavier parts of the story. And I'm really glad that he and Perrin have such a great relationship.
Yeah, it's really cute. Although I do think that Loyal is exhibiting bravado here because I don't think that he's liking adventure. Like, I mean, to some extent, but I think he's still hesitant about it, you know?
He's like talking himself into it, isn't he?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I think he's trying to like adventure because all of his friends seem to be adventuring. And he's trying to write this adventure book, so he's trying to, like, get into it. But I think in his core, he's, like, that's why his ears are twitching, because he's fibbing a little bit.
I was about to just say that. Hearing you talk about it made me realize that his ears twitch. And Loyal's ears twitch when he's either nervous or lying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're right. He's totally lying to himself. Well spotted.
But I mean, I think he's trying to like it. I do think he wants to like adventure.
Yes.
But he doesn't.
Fail. This is going to be the start of some really frustrating drama between Perrin and Fail.
Yeah. Also, it might be frustrating for the readers because I know that we're supposed to pronounce it Fail, but that's never going to happen. Like, just accept it. We pronounce things wrong. It's sort of our trademark here.
Yeah.
She will always be Fail to both of us because in some ways she is such a fail.
She's definitely an epic fail.
We didn't realize that's how you were supposed to pronounce her name until years after reading her as Fail. So we pronounce ale wrong and we pronounce Fail wrong. It just happens. Live with it. Love it. Embrace it. Okay, carry on.
Okay, yeah. I can't.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's good. Like I can't say that any better. She gets much better later in the series. But I honestly, I really don't like Fail as a character. But I will say this. Jordan gives her a pretty cool entrance here. Like, she just jumps on the ship, and as they push off of the dock, she walks right up to the captain and negotiates her passage. Then she joins Perrin at the side of the boat, watching the dock as they move away, without saying a word. It's a kind of baller move.
Yeah. I love that for a moment, Perrin considers just tossing her over the side of the boat. I mean, okay, so they're only about 20 paces from shore. That's just a little longer than a standard-sized swimming pool. It's about 30 meters.
Okay.
So if she knows how to swim, she should be fine.
Right.
And then later, he seriously considers tossing her overboard, but then it's too late. Like, it's way, way too far. He should have just done it when the thought first came to him. Just chucked her right over.
It would have been hysterical.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
Yeah. This totally awesome move. She like jumps on the boat, does her thing, and he just tosses her over.
Doesn't even say anything. She looks at him and grabs her and throws her over.
And over the edge. That's the book I want to read.
Unfortunately, that's not our parent.
No. I mean, he's too much of a gentleman to like toss a woman over the side of a boat. And it's a good thing, but like, yeah, it would have been great.
Yeah. And one thing about the conversation that Perrin and Fail have here is that neither answer the other's questions. Like, they talk about a lot of stuff, but each question is met with more questions and not answers. Like, they just keep talking around the stuff that they don't want the other one to find out about. It's almost like a game of chicken where the loser is the first to give a straight answer.
Yeah, I can see that. So the thing about Fail is that she is infuriatingly frustrating, but she's really smart.
That's true.
She's not bragging when she says that she's nimble of mind as well as fingers and has sharp eyes. Like, she's brilliant and talented. Her problem is her crappy personality, you know? Like, her reason for thinking that she can find the horn in the mountains of mist is a really good one. And she's smart enough to realize that there's something up with Perrin and he's important.
Right.
But I just find her so grating.
Yeah.
Like, calling him farm boy and just, I hate her personality so much.
Yeah. I remember the first time I read this book, I really wanted to figure Fail out. I liked this girl who didn't take no for an answer. She had a sense of humor and flashed her knives around like Tom would. Mm-hmm. She was just trying so hard to be cool. And I both wanted to see her taken down a peg, but also be a cool new addition to our big damn hero roster. I should have known the second that she gave herself her own nickname that things were not going to go well. Just like Min is kind of stuck with Rand because of what the patterns dictated, Perrin is stuck with Fail. Don't get me wrong, later in the series, Fail is exactly the person Perrin needs at his side when he becomes the Lord of the Two Rivers.
Yeah, true.
But the journey to them getting to that point is not going to be fun.
Yeah.
I feel the same thing that Perrin thinks as he's headed to his cabin. Min, why did you have to go and see things?
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Like, I do not like Fail, but she is exactly who Perrin needs.
Yes.
Like, I'm not saying that she and Perrin aren't... Well, I don't want to say that they're a good match, because they're actually not a good match.
It's kind of
but
problematic.
they are what they need, like, what the other needs. Like, Perrin would never have gotten to where he got without Fail.
Nope.
He needed her and her specific way of doing things. And they love each other. They genuinely love each other, eventually. But, like, oh, God, she's so frustrating.
Well, and on the flip side, like, Perrin gives her the opportunity to actually be this noble, like, woman that she wouldn't have gotten back at home because everybody else had already occupied all the important points of power.
Yeah.
She is in a very important point of power here in the Two Rivers when she becomes the nobleman's wife.
Yeah.
Because now she's doing all the stuff that I guess noblewomen wives do.
Yeah.
That Perrin has no clue.
Well, and the thing is, she does redeem herself eventually.
She does.
Like, in the last, I guess, 3 books, she's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But, oh my God, it's so long getting there. And it's just, she's such a garbage person for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh.
So strap in.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wraps up Chapter 35. But before we get to Chapter 36, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Today's episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru is brought to you on behalf of aspiring writers everywhere. For the hours spent researching and a Google search history that just might put you on an FBI watch list, to the emotional gymnastics required to follow Hemingway's advice to sit at a typewriter and bleed, we salute you. As William H. Glass said, the true alchemists do not change lead into gold. They change the world into words.
Chapter 36 is called Daughter of the Night, and the icon is Lanfear's moon and stars.
Perrin finds an empty cabin, hoping that the ship is far enough from shore and the wolves for it to be safe for him to get some sleep. Emo Perrin, Sir Broody McBruderson, is back until exhaustion takes over and he drifts off. Perrin finds himself in the wolf dream, surrounded by dense fog. Hopper comes to him and leads him through the fog, which becomes thicker and blacker until he's in pitch blackness. Wacky dream logic ensues until Perrin is standing as though suspended in midair over a clear space with people talking below him. He can hear them, and it turns out that it's a meeting of sleeping dark friends who are brought there by Balsamon. He singles out a man who allowed the boy to escape Tar-Valon and kills him, because what happens in the world of dreams happens in real life. He tells the rest to get going with their orders and dismisses them. Lanfear shows up, and Perrin remembers her as the beautiful woman he had once dreamed about, who tempted him with glory. She makes an ornate silver throne for herself and calls Baalsman out for freely using her domain. They have a massive snark fest, and to be honest, it's kind of fabulous. Perrin watches it all until the blackness rolls over him again, and Hopper moves him along. Perrin has a hard time accepting that the Forsaken were in his dream, so instead he decides that the dreams have driven him mad like Simeon's brother. Because of course he does. It's always the wolf's fault. Hopper brings him into daylight, and Perrin is all like, WTF, man? And Hopper's like, listen, Grasshopper, you need to see this stuff because you're an idiot and you're going to get yourself killed. But, more wolfy. Perrin asks how Hopper is there when Perrin saw him die, and Hopper explains that all wolves are in the wolf dream. He tells Perrin that, here I soar like an eagle, and leaps into the air and flies off. The scene changes, and Perrin is looking down at Rand. Myrdle, Grey Men, and Darkhounds are hunting him. They advance on him, and Rand kills them all. Perrin sees more coming and tries to warn Rand, but when he spots Perrin, Rand channels at him. Perrin wakes in pain and finds a small burn on his chest. For once, he does the right thing and decides to tell Moraine. He finds her cabin the next morning and tells her everything. In true Moraine fashion, she scares the crap out of him. She tells him that he can't channel, but a Red Sister would certainly try to gentle him anyway, if she heard what he had to say, and many others would try to kill him for it. Perrin tells her that he's sure what he saw was real, and that it means Lanfear is loose at least. They have their own little snarkfest, which is decidedly not fabulous. Before he leaves, Perrin asks Moraine, if she knew a woman was named Zareen, would she think it meant anything about her? Moraine tells him that Zareen is a Chaldean name. No woman would name her daughter that, unless she expected her to be a great beauty and a heartbreaker, one to lie on cushions in palaces, surrounded by servants and suitors. She warns Perrin to be careful if there is a Zareen around. Rand wakes up in a panic, realizing that Dream Perrin was the real Perrin, and he almost killed him. He tells himself to be more careful. He hears horses coming, walking slowly. They came closer to his failing firelight, and Rand could see that most of them looked like fighting men, with one woman who looks like she may be a merchant. The woman tells him that he chose a good campsite with a small spring nearby and asks if he objects to their sharing it. Her men were already dismounting. Rand tells her that he does not object, and then he cuts her head off with his flaming sword. He thinks to himself that she was the most dangerous. He easily kills the 10 men before letting the sword vanish. He takes the woman's horse, but decides to take a trip to Crazy Town before he leaves. Quote, the power still filled him, the flow from Sidon, sweeter than honey, ranker than rotted meat. Abruptly he channeled, not really understanding what it was he did, or how, only that it seemed right. And it worked. Lifting the corpses, he set them in a line facing him, kneeling faces in the dirt, for those that had faces left, kneeling to him. If I am the Dragon Reborn, he told them, that is the way it's supposed to be, isn't it? Letting go of Sidon was hard, but he did it. If I hold it too much, how will I keep the madness away? He laughed bitterly. Or is it too late for that? Frowning, he peered at the line. He had been sure there were only 10 men, but 11 men knelt in that line. One of them without armor or of any sort, but with a dagger still gripped in his hand. Rand shakes it off and gallops away toward Tyr and Calendar.
There's something about how Jordan wrote this wolf dream scene that makes it feel very different than the past Baalsman dreams. Mm-hmm. That's probably because Perrin is observing from a distance and not wrapped up in the details of the interaction with Baalsman himself. But even the description of walking through the fog and meeting up with Hopper, it feels much less dramatic and a bit more calm than we've seen in earlier books. Mm-hmm. There's still mystery and suspense, but I feel like Perrin is actually in control instead of being manipulated in some way. Maybe it's the calming effect Hopper has on me, but it just feels less frenzied. And I'm glad that Perrin actually gets some sleep in this chapter. It's nice to see him finally starting to connect with Hopper as well.
Yeah. I really like the interaction between Lanfear and Ishmael. Lanfear is not my favorite character, but she has some serious swagger in this scene, and I'm totally here for it. So she plops down on a throne and accuses him of playing in her playground. And she does not back down no matter what tricks and manipulations he has, like he tries to throw at her, you know?
Yeah.
Like, maybe I'm just sick of his Ishimon thing after 3 books, and I'm ready to move on. But Lanfear was pretty cool in this scene.
She totally was. She owns this whole thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Beelzemon is obsessed over the idea that Lanfear thinks herself to be above the Dark One and possibly a rogue Forsaken, if that is the case. Lanfear is so focused on the fact that Beelzemon has been free for thousands of years and has yet to actually make any lasting change when it comes to the dragon. But they basically circle each other like stray cats, but with less hissing. Mm-hmm. It's a great way to hide a bit of exposition.
Yeah.
We've said this before, but Perrin is not good with change. I think that's why he and Loyal have such a good relationship. Perrin would be the last person I'd call hasty, which an ogre may find refreshing. But that aversion to change, it can really be frustrating for us. He jumps to the conclusion that he must be going mad simply because the things that he is facing and learned do not line up with the way the world is supposed to work. I think this is why I really related to Perrin when I was in my early 20s. Mm-hmm. It was a time in my life when everything was changing and I had to face the reality that the things I had been raised to believe as fact were a lot more subjective. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily wrong, but not so cut and dry either. And the more Perrin learns to live and navigate the gray areas of his life, the better his life will get. Too bad it takes too long for him to figure it out, but it took me a while to figure it out too.
True. Yeah.
It's kind of cool that wolves never really die. Like, they joined the wolf dream. And it's just really a touching moment that Hopper is really happy where he is. Mm-hmm. Hopper can soar like the eagles, like he wanted to do his entire life. I'm not crying. Perrin's crying.
Yeah, that's a really sweet moment. So we see a similar scene with Perrin dreaming about Rand as we did with Egwene. The circumstances are different, but both dreams ended with Rand trying to kill them.
Yeah.
And this isn't just here to show that Rand is emotionally unstable. We're also seeing that he's isolated. He doesn't trust those closest to him anymore, even in his dreams, because he feels like they're being used against him. And he's going to struggle with who to trust throughout the rest of the series. You know, like in some cases, they are legitimately being used to manipulate him. But sometimes it's all in his head. And he has a really hard time sorting out which is which.
He really does.
Yeah.
This is the point where that all starts, isn't it?
It is. I really think it is. Because, you know, he's being messed with this entire book. And Beelzemon is sending images of people he knows and loves, and they're trying to kill him, and they're betraying him, and they're doing all these things. So that sticks with him, that paranoia and that distrust. Like, after this book, when he tones down the crazy a little bit,
just a bit, he
still trusts to a certain extent,
but he
the
never
people he grew
really,
up with, but except for Nynaeve.
Ironically.
Nynaeve and Min, really.
Yeah.
Like, those are the only two that he knows without a shadow of a doubt. They are on his side, and nothing can break that. But everyone else, whether he's still friendly with them or whether he still loves them, there's still those seeds of, you're manipulating me, you're being used against me, you're trying to use me. Like, what is your game here? Even with, like, Egwene and Elaine. Like, he loves Elaine. But he still has to wonder how she's being used against him.
Right.
And Egwene for sure.
Well, because Egwene and Elaine are both basically Aes Sedai, especially later on. So how can he really trust them?
Yeah. And Nynaeve is technically Aes Sedai, but Rand still has no doubt that she's on his side, no matter what.
Yeah.
And really, when at the end of the day, it comes down to Nynaeve and Min. Those are the only two people where his trust never falters.
And as I hear you talking about this, I'm trying to remember in the back of my mind. I think I'd have to go and look this up to make sure, so I could be wrong. But I think Nynaeve is the only person who doesn't appear in his dreams and try to kill him either.
Oh, you know what? You might be right.
And I know Min definitely
Min does.
Yeah.
But he still has the thought of, he knows that in reality, she would never hurt him.
Exactly.
And that's the only person that he has that thought about. But you're right. I don't think Nynaeve shows up in his dream to kill him.
Which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, I do think that starts here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
It definitely grows because the reality is people are being used against him.
Yes.
And
nothing feeds paranoia like a little bit of truth.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I think that starts here with the way he's being harassed and manipulated.
Yeah. Know? So back to Perrin. Perrin actually goes to Moraine for healing. Mm-hmm. All it took was getting a lightning bolt to the chest in the wolf dream, but he went willingly this time. He told her the whole story without holding anything back. I think we can count that as progress.
Yeah.
But he also kind of expects her to do something about the fact that Landfair is loose on the world. Again, I think he's speaking from how he has always thought the world works growing up, not willing to change his perspective. Aes Sedai are mythical beasts, so of course she can do something about it. To her credit, Moraine does not hold back either. She answers him in a very straightforward way, even if it is terrifying. At least until he started acting like an ass. Careful what you wish for, Perrin.
Yeah. I love this part. Do not question me, she said coldly. You do not know which questions to ask, and you would comprehend less than half the answers if I gave them, which I will not. Moraine does not handle the boys well at all.
No.
But at the same time, she's right. Like, Perrin has no idea what he's talking about. His ideas about the world are so naive, he doesn't even know where to begin to question, you know?
He does not.
Speaking of mishandling things, Moraine does not heal Perrin, supposedly so that he can learn a lesson. It comes right after snapping at him, and he sees it as a punishment for challenging her.
Yes, he does.
Any progress that was made in him coming to tell her what was going on, for once, was lost in this moment.
Yes, it was.
Like, he immediately gets his back up and doesn't tell her that Fail knows she's Aes Sedai, or that she thinks that they can lead her to the Horn, thinking that if Moraine can be secretive, that he can too.
Yep.
And she's right back to square one with him because she decided to teach him a lesson. When is she going to learn that playing games with these boys always backfires on her?
I think in the next couple books.
Not until
not until she goes through a door and some special people have to tell her what's going to happen.
No, even after that, it's not. I don't think it's until book 5.
Well, it's when she actually resolves to I have to figure this shit out because I'm going to die soon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Perrin asks Moraine what it means if a woman has the name Zareen. And it's such a shift in gears that it throws Moraine off for a second.
She's flabbergasted by that question.
And I kind of admire the fact that our Two Rivers people are the only ones that ever catch her off guard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done, Perrin, I guess. Yeah. Now we know why Fail hates the name Zareen. Mm-hmm. And why she was so angry when Perrin said it suited her.
Yeah, he's lucky she didn't stab him.
Yeah. And I love that we leave Perrin with the thought of, as long as she doesn't call herself Falcon, that ship has sailed, buddy.
Yep. So I'm pretty sure this is the craziest we'll see Rand until much later in the series.
Yeah.
When he lines up the corpses so that they're kneeling to him and he talks to them, I honestly don't know what to say about that. Like, okay, so when Jordan realized that he was going to be getting more books, he had to dial the crazy way back.
I think so.
Because Rand is way out in left field here, you know? Like, my first time through this series, I really wanted to be on Rand's side. But I remember reading this scene and thinking, oh no, this is only going to end in tears. Like, this guy is too far gone to be a hero.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I knew that there were a lot more books in the series because I didn't start reading until Knife of Dreams came out. And I just figured he would keep getting worse, you know? And, like, maybe one of the other boys would have to take him out or something.
Yeah.
Like, what did you think?
Okay, so my first time through, like...
When did you start reading? Like, what books were out?
Winter Heart, I believe, was the last book released when I picked him up.
Okay.
So that kind of puts everything in perspective. So I knew there were more books with Rand. I seen him on a couple of the covers, and the covers that I'd seen were Lord of Chaos, where there's just devastation around him, and he's kind of like standing over looking crazy, and then like the Crown of Swords with him sitting on like a horse with like a scepter pointing out, looking all like, I really thought that where this was going is that, okay, so he's gone mad, and now he's gonna be like, we've heard the stories about Arthur Harkwing like ruling through might. And Rand's going to be one of those people. And he may save us in the end, but we're going to have to kill him when he's done. Like, I honestly thought that's where the story was going.
Yeah, like he was going to be completely nuts and violent and just erratic.
So I was looking for all the, like, okay, so Perrin and Matt are going to have to, like, get back together. And they're going to have to come together and kill their childhood friend.
Yeah.
And, you know, that would have been a very compelling story.
Or, like, Egwene and Nynaeve are going to have to come and, like, possibly gentle him.
Yeah. Like, I was putting all that together. Like, yeah, Rand sucks to be him. I still think he's a good guy at heart, but he's gone crazy and he's going to have to be put down.
Yeah,
I really did.
Because, I mean, again, thinking that it was just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse.
Right. Or maybe at the end of the story, like, he kind of dials it back and ends up living in a steadying with Loyal for the rest of the time. I don't know. Like, I knew, but I was definitely convinced that Rand was... This scene here convinced me that Rand was gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're right. So he gets dialed back, and maybe we'll talk about it later about why and stuff like that. But I believe I've heard different stories.
Well, okay, I was thinking about that. So let me tell you what I was thinking,
okay,
and then you can tell me what your theories are.
Go for it.
So, like, we were just talking about how Rand is getting paranoid about his friends. Like, if you think about his entire journey during this book, he's being constantly chased and harassed by Bowsman and his forces.
Everywhere he turns.
He's, like, they're trying to drive him crazy. So, to a certain extent, of course, he's being successful at driving Rand crazy.
Right.
Like, he's under constant stress. He's only sleeping in snippets. Like, he's constantly having to fight for his life. Like, he is under extreme stress right now.
Yes, he is.
So, it makes sense that he's really exhibiting signs of emotional instability and craziness. But when he's no longer in this situation,
true,
it dials back because he's no longer under the extreme duress. You know, like when they're in Tyr, he's hanging out, he's getting a little kiss and cuddle from Elaine. Things are looking up. Like he's happy for a couple months. And then later when he's living with Min, she makes him happy, and she's a stabilizing thing in his life.
She's an anchor. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, obviously a lot of things happen to him. And, you know, he's in stressful situations at varying degrees throughout the series. But in this book, like, he has people actively trying to drive him mad.
Right.
So it does actually make sense that he's acting crazier, and then when those forces are removed, he gets better.
And that makes sense, and I totally agree with that interpretation. Because until you actually walked through that just now, I didn't realize that you're right. People are actually actively trying to make him crazy.
Yeah,
that part
and
skipped my mind.
I actually hadn't thought about that until like today or yesterday. It was very recent, and I was like, people are trying to drive him crazy.
Yeah,
it makes sense that they're being successful.
So, and that doesn't really happen after this book. Like, they don't actively
they attack
try
him
to...
in different ways, but they're not trying to drive him mad like they are here.
Huh. I like that interpretation. So what I was going to say is that I've heard a couple people talk about how originally Robert Jordan had a contract for like 3 books.
Yeah.
I've also heard he had a contract for 4 books. I've also heard he had a contract for no books. It was just the first one, and then later they added. So the story goes around and around. But a lot of people tend to agree that once he got done with the Eye of the World, Tor picked him up for a total of 4-book contract.
Okay.
This is book number 3.
Right.
So part of the reason we see him ramped up as crazy could just be nature of...
Jordan only thought he had one more.
Right, we're heading towards a climax. We're going to have to come down from something in the next book.
That's what I assumed was what actually happened.
But the sales were so high that around the time he was working on this book, they said, oh, let's do some more. So we got permission to write more books, so he didn't have to have this, like... completely crazy rant at the end of this book that could have a climax in the next. So they were able to stretch it out. I don't know if there's any validity to any of that. It sounds like people trying to explain things to me, but it seems to be accepted as pretty well accepted fact among fandom that hasn't been, established. So I just kind of want to put that out there for why is Rand getting so crazy. But I like your explanation much better because because we have a whole bunch more Forsaken that he's going to have to encounter. Just these 2 people going after him. Like, the crazy probably got dialed up because exactly what Prey Osmond's trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think reality falls somewhere in between. I do think that there is some truth to the story of he got his timetable extended.
True.
He thought he only had a certain number of books, and they gave him more, so he was able to spread it out, so he had to dial it back a bit. But if you're looking for an in-story reason that actually makes logical sense, Bellsman is trying to drive him crazy right now.
True.
And it's working. So
you gave her both theories.
Yeah.
That's it for chapters 35 and 36 of The Dragon Reborn. Join us next week to discuss chapters 37 and 38, where the girls are shipwrecked and meet some maidens of the spear.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of the Wheel of Time Pod-Thru.
We'll see you again next week. Make sure that you rate and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or whatever your favorite podcatcher might be. If you could leave us a positive review, it would really help us out. It makes us more visible so more people can find us. You can tweet us at WhatPodThru or email us at whatpodthru@gmail.com and tell us your thoughts on anything we covered today.
That's WOTPODTHRU@gmail.com. Or find our Wheel of Time Pod-Thru channel on YouTube. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, you know the drill. Thanks, everybody, and we hope the wheel weaves you in our direction again soon.
Chapter 36 is called Daughter of the Night, and the icon is Lanfear's moon. And stars. Let me try that again. Moon. And stars.
Moon. And stars. Also. In addition to. Love you.
Wow. I love you too.
And today's podcast is brought to you by
William Shatner.
All right.